Glad you could make it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the special call meeting of the Ways and Means Committee here in the Mississippi House of Representatives. We have several members of the committee here today. We do have a quorum, as well as we have friends that are not members of the committee and also some from the other side of the building. Some of our Senate friends are here today with us as well. We have some very special guests with us. The United States Army Corps of Engineers from the Vicksburg office is here today with us. I think everybody knows what the topic of the meeting today is. This Arcabutler Lake is in my backyard. So literally, I hate to assume that everybody knows what's going on with Arcabutler Lake because we've got people represented here from all over the state. But just a few ground rules and opening remarks, and I'll turn it over to the Corps to introduce themselves and start our program. But Arcabutler Lake back in the in 2023, what month was it, guys? Was it the spring when it was first found? The spring of 23. There was found to be a failure in the lake dam. For those of y'all who may not know, Arcabutler Lake is a dam that was built in the 30s and 40s to dam up the Coldwater River. It's one of four federal flood control lakes that were constructed by the Army Corps of Engineers in the 30s and the 40s. You have Arcabutler Lake, Sardis Lake, Enid, and Grenada Lakes make up the four major flood control lakes that really help prevent a lot of the major flooding that we have historically seen throughout the Mississippi Delta, the greater alluvial plain. So those decisions were made back during that time frame, the 30s and the 40s, to really alleviate and assist with flooding throughout the Delta. That's been approximately 80 to 90 years ago. The lakes are getting some age on them now. And this is the first, to my knowledge, I know y'all will be asked this question at some point in time, but to my knowledge, the first major problem we've had with one of those four flood control lakes since they've been constructed. So we're going to ask you to go through some of the history, and hopefully y'all can be able to do that with us today as well. So that's what today's hearing is going to be about. We'll have a time for the Corps of Engineers to present basically what the problem is, when it was discovered, and ultimately how we'd fix it. That's number one. Number two, and I think members of my committee know this, the committee is going to be run professional. There will be, if you have a question, save those questions to the end. There will be a time for that. We will not accept, it's not our custom to accept questions from the audience. There are some exceptions to that. We'll just see how today goes. But under no circumstances will there be any blurting out or, as my granddaddy or daddy said, acting a fool in this committee meeting. You will be asked to leave if you do that. I understand that we're dealing with a sensitive topic that affects people's livelihoods, but we will conduct today's hearing in a very professional manner, and I expect no members of the legislature will do that, and I expect the same from the Corps and all our visitors here today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the United States Army Corps of Engineers. And I would ask, gentlemen, if y'all would please introduce yourself, and then the floor will be y'all's.
Thank you for that production, big delegates, voters, public, online. I'm Colonel Jeremiah, Vicksburg District, on behalf of the Army Corps of Engineers, serving 250 years. We're excited to tell briefly about Harper. As you know, Corps of Engineers in the great state of Mississippi has had a long tradition of partnership and collaboration. We talked about the Mississippi River. We talked about the Backlog Project. We talked about Pearl River. Today we're going to talk about Harper. What we first say is we appreciate the great transparency and collaboration across all state agencies dealing with this issue. That's from the perspective, EQ, wildlife, etc. State Mississippi agencies are aligned and are very partners in a collaborative solution that we'll talk about today, and that we need to dialogue in the future. So I'm going to talk about four kind of highlights, and we're going to turn it over to the engineer who will have unfiltered access to the technical knowledge and data how the water works, what we're doing in the interim, and what's the long-term repair. So how the water works is gonna be Corey Winters, who's my chief of hydrology. He is just a wealth of knowledge that comes to what happens when a rainfall event hits the ground. So every time you turn on your TV, you'll have to meter off, because they're gonna tell you what's gonna happen and where it's gonna rain.
But you need a hydraulic engineer that's going to tell you what happens when that raindrop hits the ground. Different perspective. Then I'm going to turn it over to Will Bradley, my Chief of Engineering and Construction, and he's going to talk about some of the interim solutions that we're doing to increase the protections of the dam. The dam must continue to operate as a dam through the construction period. And then we're going to talk and turn it over to Noah Vorman, who's our, the lead technical engineer looking at the long-term solutions. Again, the dam must continue to operate as a flood control reservoir throughout the construction, and then turn it back over so that it will continue to protect the downstream communities like Marks, Mississippi, and those communities throughout the Delta. So the first point, protecting communities is our duty. It's our professional responsibility. Point two, the flood risk is a shared challenge. When we talk about lives and property, it needs a coordinated partnership to build the community resilience. And that includes the state agencies that also support that. So, Director McCraney, great to see you here. Great to dialogue again. Point three, communication builds trust. This engagement, I'm very, very thankful for, but the confidence that you have in your Army Corps of Engineers comes about only through this dialogue and many more to come. Lastly, this collaboration will drive solutions. We need to hear the on-the-ground challenges of what's going on at Arkabutla, such as the willow trees that are all already growing up there, because what we don't want is for a big tree to grow for the next 10 years and then to get drowned out, to die, and then somehow get into the outlet works and cause further damage, right? So we've got to look at this holistically, and that includes local governments all the way through the federal agencies. So I appreciate the transparency. I appreciate the opportunity to dialogue here, and I'm going to turn it over to our engineers to give you the latest and greatest.
Good afternoon. So I'm Corey Winters. I'm going to go over the project history and overview. So we'll talk a little bit about how these projects came to be. We'll dive into the Yazoo Basin, kind of how it works, and then an overview of Arkabutla Lake. So there was a historic flood in 1927 along the Mississippi River. So you can read some of the facts on the screen. What that flood did was it led to the creation of two flood control acts. The first was 1928, and that authorized the MR&T, so the levees along the Mississippi River and tributary system. There was a second flood control act in 1936 that was for the Yazoo headwater projects. So that led to the creation of the four lakes in our Yazoo Basin that you see at the bottom of the screen. So starting 1936, when that Flood Control Act was created, started the planning, design, and construction of the four Mississippi lakes. On the screen, you can see the construction dates of those. But we'll talk a little bit about the image on the right. So it's a kind of a cartoon image that we use to describe the Yazoo Basin. I get asked a lot, you're letting water out of Arkabutla, how's that going to affect the Yazoo backwater or the Yazoo backwater pump project? So the answer is it's not. And I'll kind of walk through that. So you have Arkabutla, it's kind of off the screen there in the top right, drains into the Coldwater River. That water continues downstream meets water that comes from Enid and Sardis to the Tallahatchie River. They join up and go down to where the Yallabusha River carries water from Grenada. It meets the Little Tallahatchie River and it forms the Yallabusha River just above Greenwood. So then the Yazoo River goes around Greenwood, around Yazoo City, and down, drains into the Mississippi River right at Vicksburg. So that's kind of how the water drains from the four Mississippi lakes and makes its way to the Mississippi River. The Yazoo backwater is separated from that by the Yazoo Backwater Levee, Will Whittington Levee, and a few other levees that protect it. Primarily have two rivers. You have the Sunflower River and the Still Bayou. They drain to the south to the Yazoo Backwater Levee. We have two gravity structures there, Little Sunflower structure and Still Bayou structure. When the water in the backwater is higher than the water in the Yazoo River, we can open those gates and let water drain from the Yazoo backwater into the Yazoo River. And then that drains on down to Vicksburg and into the Mississippi River. So just a little graphic of how the Yazoo Basin operates and works. So from the Yazoo Basin, I'll now kind of dive into Arkabutla Dam. So I get asked a lot, or I get told a lot, hey, y'all are letting a lot of water out of the spillway. Y'all need to cut back how much y'all are letting out of the spillway. So it's not an accurate statement. I want to kind of clarify a little bit of how the dam works. So you can see the dam there. It's about 1.8 miles long. And you see the outlet works kind of on the east side of or the right side of the image there, and the spillway kind of the top left-hand side. So if you ever go to our project office, the spillway is right there to your left. If you're at our project office at Arkabutla. If you're going across the dam and you see the large tower kind of in the middle of the dam, that's our outlet works. So how the dam works is we have 3 gates at the outlet works. We operate those gates to let water out of Arkabutla into the Coldwater River. That's where the majority of the water exits the lake into the Coldwater River. The outlet works, I'll kind of hit on some flows right now. So the most that the outlet works can let out is 10,000 CFS. And that's with full head on, that's if water's all the way to the spillway. What we normally let out is 5,000, that's kind of design. We have not let out any more than 4,500 CFS during the dam safety emergency. So we're only letting out about 45% of its max capacity since 2023, this occurred. The most we have ever let out through the outlet works is 6,500 CFS during a flood in March of 1983. So we've never even gotten to the 10,000 CFS that it's capable of. So when water rises in the lake, it goes out through this outlet work structure. The top of dam's at a 264.3, so it's pretty high up there. The spillway that you see on the left-hand side is at a 238.3. So if water gets anywhere below 238.3, it's never going out the spillway. When it gets above 238.3, that spillway is a concrete weir. We cannot control it. It's uncontrolled. But you will have water going over the spillway if it gets above 238.3. As you can see, kind of in the bottom right-hand side of the screen, the max capacity of that spillway is 90,000 cubic feet per second. The most we have ever had go over the spillway is 13,500, so about 15% of that. That was in a flood in April of 91. So the spillway has actually not been activated since 2019. So for the last 6 years, no water has gone over the spillway. All water that's gone out of Arkabutla in the last 6 years has gone through the outlet works structure. And again, since 2023, we've let no more than 4,500 out downstream. So just a quick overview of the dam, how we operate it, how it works. And I'm going to turn it over to Noah Vroman to talk more about the dam safety emergency.
All right, thanks, Corey. Let's get you. All right, I'm Noah Vroman with the Corps of Engineers. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the dam safety issues that we're having with Arkabutla and then what we've done to date to mitigate those issues. So in May of 2023, a sinkhole was discovered at the dam. You can see the sinkhole in the left picture. There's an arrow pointing. It's just right above the outlet of the outlet works, the So the dam, as Corey mentions, we have two ways to pass water. One is through a conduit, with 3 gates on it. That's what we primarily use. This sinkhole is located right above that conduit at the downstream, end or the downstream toe of the dam. So sometimes we do find depressions in dams. It's not uncommon. So we just want to make sure what's causing that depression. So in the case of Arcobutla, we ruled out and did an investigation to ensure where has that material gone. We have lost material somewhere due to some reason. So we investigated, we dewatered the Stillen Basin. So this is when the water comes out of the outlet works, the conduit. We have a Stillen Basin that is intended to still the water so it doesn't cause a lot of erosion in the channels downstream. And this Stillen Basin has baffle blocks, other things that are trying to dissipate the energy of the water. So this Stillen Basin is designed, it has drains in it to relieve up seepage pressures and those of that nature. When we unwatered the outlet works to inspect it, we found material, you can see the muddy water coming out of these drains in the lower left picture. So in a matter of minutes, we were having buckets, 5-gallon buckets of material coming out from underneath the dam. This is in May of 2023. So this is a serious issue. We're losing material from the dam. We're losing the integrity of the dam at that time. So our immediate, reaction to that was to take the pressure off the dam, which was to lower the lake. If we can lower the lake level or the pressure off the dam, we can slow down the progression of that failure of the dam. So we lowered the lake down to 204. That was our target level. And that's based on, and we have instrumentation at the project that we can read and tell the performance that we're getting by lowering that pressure. So we were getting some positive feedback there. So currently we are, I think today I checked, Corey, I think we're at 205 today. This is kind of where we're holding the pool. So I'll just kind of have a video here just to kind of show you guys what that looks like. So this video was taken in August the 7th, 2025 this year. This is a drone video starting on the downstream end, looking towards the dam, and you can see the lake in the background. So the lake at this date was 205, roughly 205. The tailwater is at 168. And so we're releasing about 200 to 300 CFS out of the outlet works. So you could see here, what the conditions look like at the project right now, if you're not familiar with the dam. And I think the drone's going to make a pan to the left. You can see the riprap. This is looking on the upstream side of the dam. And you can see the 2 different color riprap there, and that's the lighter color is generally where the pool is typically sat over time. And this is looking downstream. So, all right. So I'm going to talk about, obviously this is a serious issue. We had an ongoing failure of the dam. We did issue a breach emergency warning at that time. We did coordinate with MEMA to get that information out. Obviously, public safety is our first priority. And so we needed a rapid response to this issue. So we call this in the Corps of Engineers and Dam Safety an interim risk reduction measures, but this is our direct response to mitigate the danger posed by the dam. So initially, obviously that sinkhole was discovered in May of 2023. So in 2023 to 2024, we mitigated the outlet of the material that was coming out from under the dam We did that by installing relief wells that can safely capture seepage that's occurring along the conduit and under the dam, and then plugging these drains that I was showing you in the Stillen Basin, that where all the material was coming out. So we basically, stop the movement of material from the dam, and we're also able to safely manage the seepage pressures. So excuse me for the technical jargon there. Hopefully that's pretty clear. So that and the pool drawdown was the first immediate reaction we had to ensure that the dam didn't fully breach and mitigate or arrest the failure mode that we had ongoing in May of 2023. So currently, we recognize that we've lost material underneath the dam, as you saw the sinkhole and you saw material coming out. So we have voids under the dam. So our current measure that we're getting ready to implement later this fall is to grout those voids, to fill those voids with a cementitious grout to restore the integrity of the foundation of the dam. So that is ongoing. We expect that to start later this fall and carry over into the early part of the winter. So as we're doing that, emergency preparedness is very vital for us. As Colonel Gibson mentioned, collaboration with our partners, flood risk is a shared risk. So we just did a tabletop exercise in Batesville, Mississippi on the project with our state partners and our community partners to go through an exercise of what would a potential breach look like? How do we safely get people out of harm's way? How do we communicate these situations across the government agencies to ensure there's seamless and timely communication so that we can. So we did this, and this is a common thing that we do to prepare, most dams in the state. They're high hazard dams like Arcabella will have an EAP and tabletop exercises. So we're doing these more frequently for Arcabella because we do have a situation that we're concerned about. We also, in part of that, we produce flood maps to show the impacts of flooding from different scenarios. These are available on our website. And what I'm showing you here is as we're releasing water, I think the flood stage it marks is around stage 39. Is that right, Corey? And so we noticed that we had to release this past spring due to high water or rainfall that is occurring. Excuse me. We're able to provide this information to help make the communities make informed decisions about how to mitigate these impacts. This kind of leads us to our increased stakeholder engagement. Obviously, transparency and communication is important for us to share the information and things that are ongoing. So our Facebook page, our social media, we also have a website as well. We're sharing information. And one of the things there, the gentleman in the hard hat, second picture from the left, we're actually out there doing soil borings, collecting data that we can use to inform long-term repairs. We're actually already on site doing that work. To the bottom right is a photo where with the colonel and the community leaders there at Marks to talk about solutions to mitigate the impacts of flooding at Marks. So those are just some examples, but these are very important to us. So I will turn it over to Mr. Bradley.
Yeah, good afternoon. So my name is Will Bradley. I'm the Chief of Engineering and Construction, and I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of dam safety, use case, how we handle it, the long-term repairs at Arcabella, and then we'll get into, I know we get a lot of questions about the other 3 dams in Mississippi and how they're performing. So we'll talk a little bit about that here as well. So as an agency, USACE owns 790 dams across the country. The top 3 priorities are there on the left, of which Arcabella is one. And so the relevance of that is that the agency takes it very, very seriously. we have something of this magnitude. Because we hold safety, life safety, property damage safety paramount, right? And so we're working with the Center of Expertise, the Dam Safety Center of Expertise out of Huntington, West Virginia. And so we have assigned engineers working along with our engineers in Vicksburg that are experts in this. They've done these types of things before. They've done them successfully, and they've delivered projects like this. So what is that permanent fix? So right now, the team's working towards what you see on the screen. And so essentially what that is a relocation of the outlet works. So a new outlet works approximately 1,000 feet northeast of the existing outlet works. And so that'll start with the construction of a cofferdam. That's kind of the green lines you see kind of out in the lake bed. So we just do that so we can work in the dry. And then it'll be an installation of a new conduit, a new gatehouse, new control structure, and then excavation of a new outlet channel that'll actually tie into the existing channel. So once all that is operational, functional, we will go into abandonment of the existing outlet works. So what that looks like is filling in the outlet channel, the old portion of it, sealing the existing conduit, filling it, and then actual removal of a portion of the existing gatehouse. So that area will be sealed, and the gate will be serviced from the new outlet works once complete. So timelines. So approximately 10 years for design and construction is what we're tracking right now. I know that seems like a long time. What I can tell you though is, talking with our experts out of Huntington, that is consistent with similar projects that have been done around the country. So that is something that's pretty consistent. And the main driver on that timeline, one of the things that really extends that is to keep in mind that we have to continue to operate the dam as it is in a safe manner while we're building this. So that drastically complicates the process of installing the new outlet works. And so the team is forging ahead with design, like Noah said right now. So what this is a rendering of the cofferdam with the excavation, the planned excavation of the in situ dam. And so, like Noah said, the team is actually out there now. We have a boring crew out there now taking samples, making sure that, you know, what's shown on our plans as far as materials in the dam, that's really there. Looking for suitable borrow to build this cofferdam. And just to give you guys you know, we go back to the timeline, the magnitude of some of these pieces. So the cofferdam, as it's shown right there, that's about 1.3 million cubic yards of dirt. So to put that in perspective, that's 93,014 cubic yard dump trucks. So if you were to line them up tip to tail in a single file line, that line would stretch 350 miles. So that's just kind of to put that in perspective of the magnitude of the effort that's going into this. And also keeping in mind that cofferdam, you know, it's more than a pile of dirt. It's going to have compaction. It has to perform while we're working. It has to perform just like Arkabutla Dam as it sits there today. So if water comes up to 220 in the lake bed, our cofferdam has to provide that same level of protection, not only to the people working, but right to the people downstream as well. So just want to use that to put that in perspective, but we're actively moving out on those.
I don't want to get into a pattern of interruption, but I would like, could you specifically talk to us about the differences between this type of outlet works that you're proposing as the fix compared to what's there currently? It looks like a totally different design and, you
Yeah,
know.
so we'll go to how about that?
Right.
That kind of goes right into the next slide a little bit. So we are looking at, the team is also designing a new conduit. So I think if we were to design Arkabutla today, we wouldn't have done that egg-shaped conduit. There's some issues with water stops. There's some construction flaws in what's out there today. And so this will be the team's looking at a more efficient design. So they continue to refine the shapes and diameters and how we're going to move the water out. They're also looking at, we continue to look for efficiencies in how we're doing things. So while we are designing this, we're actually also looking at other similar dams across the country that convey similar amounts of water and trying to see, is there a design that's already in service out there that's working, that's doing really, really well that we can apply at Arcabutla. So a lot of stuff ongoing, but we continue to work on that. But we're consistently looking for efficiencies and kind of how we can move that timeline up. All right, and so I think that, the other big question we get is what about the remaining 3 dams? So I'll call your attention to that middle column there, the Dam Safety Action Classification, or we call that the DSAC. And so what that is that is a reflection, it's a score from 1 to 5, with 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. That's a reflection of a dam's condition, how it's performing relative to the risk downstream. So obviously Arcabutla with its issues in an active failure mode, or was in an active failure mode, it's a DSAC 1, urgent need of repair. Grenada and Enid, they're DSAC 4s. So for that size of dam, population at risk, the age, DSAC 4 is very good. That means they are performing really, really well with no ongoing issues, and they're just subject to our routine inspection program, which is annual inspections. Every 5 years, we do a major inspection where we actually unwater the outlet works and we go in the conduit and look at everything. So that's the kind of stuff we're doing there, but continuous monitoring. And then Sardis. So this is the one that comes up the most. So Sardis as a DSAC 2, it does not have the same issues that Arcabutla has. It does have, it was constructed kind of with a dredge material, which has a lot of sand in it. And now we know that that is a seismic zone. And so with water and sand and seismic, we do have some concerns there. So right now, Sardis is in what we call an issue evaluation study, an IES. And so what that is there's a team of experts that has come down, they visited the dam, they've been to the district, and we essentially gave them every piece of information that we have on Sardis, as-built drawings, design memorandums with calculations, all the way out to photos from the original construction. That team is assessing all that information, and they will come back with a recommendation to either keep that DSAC rating as a 2. They may elevate it, they may lower it to a 3. I can't tell you exactly what that's going to come out to be. What I can tell you is that all 3, the remaining 3 reservoirs in Mississippi, they are operating as they were designed as of today. They're performing as intended, and we continue to monitor them and just ensure that we're operating them safely. Yes, sir.
Okay, last slide. So we made it to the end. So I appreciate everybody, hanging in there. And then we'll take a whole bunch of questions or stay as long as we need. 3 takeaways. Protecting our communities is our priority, and it's our professional duty. That's what we're here to do, and that's what your Corps of Engineers is doing today. Preparation is public service in action. So this committee has an integral part of that. State agencies has an integral part of that, as well as the Corps and other federal agencies. We are all singularly focused in on protecting lives and prosperity and the environment. And lastly, this is more than just a project to us. It's a partnership. The same folks that live around the lake and recreate at the lake likely wear Corps of Engineer badges too. So the people who work in the Vicksburg district are your neighbors. They have grown up in your same communities. They've gone to your same colleges and schools and churches. We are in this together. This is a partnership, and we need it to find the solution so that everyone can benefit. And with that, sir, thanks for your time for allowing us to update you on Arcabutla.
Guys, I appreciate that very much. I imagine there's going to be probably quite a few questions. I'm going to start us off, and gentlemen, I promise I'll get to you quickly. A lot of people, don't dispute there's a problem. Colonel, we know there's a problem. That's obvious. But we're interested to learn more about the fix. Y'all talked about that some today, and the most glaring comments we hear about the time frame. And so I'm just going to ask you that right out of the gate. I mean, talk to us more about the time frame. We've heard a lot of people said 15 years. I was asked recently, well, where do you get 15 years? It's not 15 years, but I checked it again this morning. It's directly from your website and the information y'all are putting out. Y'all basically state a 3 to 5 year time frame for more planning, going from 25 to 30, and then a 7 to 10 time frame for construction and completion, going from 2037 up to 2040. That doesn't count the past 2 years. Remember, this problem started in 23. So the people living below the dam have had the last 2 years dealing with this already. So worst case scenario, you're talking about a 17-year time frame. And I understand that you're saying, I think you're going to say, we hope it's not 17 years to fix this thing. But I really believe the people of this state and the people that live there, specifically the people that have based their entire business that they use to support their families, a lot of the farmers and businesses downstream below the levee that have already seen effects of the flood during this past farming season, deserve a little more explanation than what they've gotten. I'm not being critical. I just really wish y'all would spend some time focusing on that. And I get it. You're going to say, well, it depends on money. So I understand that's probably going to be part of your answer. So talk to us about the efforts. I was in Washington, D.C. last week. I met with Senator Cindy Hatt-Smith's office, and their instructions were, tell us what it's going to cost. Let us go get the money. Y'all worry about fixing it. And that's the message that I got from her office. And so talk to us about what efforts have been there about getting those cost estimates and planning going forward, and really the time frame. I mean, I don't. You're going to read my mind in saying this, not trying to be critical, but 15 to 17 years is not acceptable. So please talk to us about that.
No, thank you for the question. And we get it often, and we ask ourselves the exact same questions. My team is tired of hearing that question from me. So here's how I'll respond to that. Because I was in DC last week as well, probably just after you got out of the senator's office, and I was going through Congressman Kelly's office, and I heard it from him. And I was going through Senator Wicker's office, and I've heard it from him. So the Mississippi delegation is united in finding the right solution. The Corps owes you what that right solution is. And what I've kind of shown, articulated to you is, yes, Arkabutla, the original structure, the one that exists today, was built in 3 years, but it has a decade of planning that went in before that. And so, I was telling some others, I bet everybody's grandpa in here told them to measure twice and cut once. So we've got to measure twice to get this thing to do it the right way. And I would tell you that we're doing that. This timeline has accelerated within the last 6 months. The timeline has accelerated 2 years because we've allowed our engineers the time to find the right solutions. And what I did not hear at the in my congressional delegation is find us the cheapest solution either. So we understand that their time has a value. We understand the downstream impacts. We also understand that a lot of the concerns we saw in 2025, a lot of that rainfall that affected Marks, Mississippi and surrounding communities was uncontrolled rainfall. It fell below the dam. But that will not occur every time. And so this dam needs to operate while in construction to mitigate and reduce some of those downstream impacts. It won't do it at its full 100% capacity. We recognize that, but this transparency and partnership is what is required, and especially those early measures with other state agencies to mitigate some of those downstream impacts. So I know it's not the right timeline, but what we can't do is 20 years from now say we got this wrong.
I think we all agree with that. Let me ask you this. Is there anything in current federal law, rules and regulations that would allow for an expedited process? I mean, do y'all have emergency provisions? I'm assuming you do. And can you talk to us about how that process would work?
So I would tell you that so it's a great question. It really is, and it's insightful, and it's one the Corps is actively reevaluating today. And so the map that we just showed you, I don't know what page it was on, but this map here. This map was released in what we call a core document, a directive document. General Graham, the chief engineers, is actively reorganizing the Corps of Engineers to get after for conversational speak, 800 dams in the inventory. 800 dams, all with various factors and different risk levels, right? So he's consolidating and putting the best engineers on this entire portfolio. And yes, you're exactly correct. The Corps of Engineers doesn't do anything without congressional authority and appropriation. I would tell you, I think we have the right authorities in place, and we're designing the Corps of Engineers in the right manner to put your best structural and geotechnical engineers on the hardest problem sets across our nation. And those engineers owe Congress and our decision makers and our appropriators the numbers in the right fiscal years to mitigate the risks as much as they can. So just as I said, we've accelerated the timeline about 2 years in the last 6 months. We have seen movements within that cost estimation, because some of the assumptions that we're making through this process of, do we need 100% design? Do I need to go through full design to give Congress the answer to allow them appropriate, or is something in the middle ground more appropriate? Can I do it by next year and allow us to complete the design? Can I phase the construction and say, can I get after the geotechnical work in the coffer dam and build in that U-shaped dam to start working in the dry then, and build the new outlet structure? We're evaluating all those things right now. That's why we have currently, if you drove across Butler, you probably see some drill rigs out there. We're taking those soil samples and those measurements to move the construction faster. We know that 10 years is not the right message, but that's what we got to allow the engineers the ability to do their work and not force them into a situation to where we get the wrong answer.
No, I certainly appreciate that. And with the committee's strongest encouragement, I would urge y'all to take that process. In other words, you presented a plan that cost 800 or 900 million, to say almost $1 billion. We know it's not going to cost 200 or 300. Okay. So, if it's going to take us a few years to get $1 billion secured to fund it, let's not wait until we have final design to start that work. I mean, I think most people would agree, and it sounds like y'all do as well, that just is common sense. Gentlemen, let me ask one more question, and then I'll turn it over to the committee. You repeated yourself multiple times, I think for good measure and good reason, about that safety is your number one concern. Talk to the people here today and the people listening about the severity of the concerns downstream. And we've got mothers and grandmothers and children that live, in really, really close proximity to the Coldwater River, all downstream. And so I don't want this committee to leave here today not understanding the full seriousness. I mean, if you're just saying, oh, well, anything could happen, or are you telling us this is serious and y'all need to be on high alert until this thing is fixed, until we give you a green light, whether that's 10 years or 15 years or sometime sooner? I mean, I don't want to sugarcoat anything today. If it's bad, tell us it's bad and let us process that.
Okay. Great question again. I'm going to give you my answer, my takeaways, and I'm going to ask Will Bradley, who's the dam safety officer, the Corps of Engineer dam safety officer, the professional engineer that's supposed to answer this question for you. So two perspectives. So get ready, Will. I'm going to go to you to clean up all my mess. 2 years ago, we had an emergency. we were losing material out of the dam. That material loss caused a big sinkhole right above the outlet structure that you could put a Jersey barrier, one of those big concrete things you drive next to on the highway to keep you in your lanes. It basically swallowed that Jersey barrier. We had a problem 2 years ago. The interim risk reduction measures that we've incorporated into this dam have made it safer. Is it 100% safe yet? No, it's not, because we don't know the full structural voids that are in that dam. We feel with great confidence that the dam is safe. It is not going to breach immediately because we've lowered the pool level. We've increased and put different sensors inside of the dam to measure the pressures inside of the dam. And so you in another previous chart, you'd seen where we're accepting risk levels up to 215 feet. This coming spring pool, we feel with great confidence that we're going to be able to accept 220 feet pool elevations before we have to do 24-hour monitoring. We will stay aligned with the Mississippi Emergency Management Agency. I think there's broader conversation that this collective body and our state and federal agencies could have with emergency preparedness measures, specifically around Marks, Mississippi, working with the local levee boards and working with emergency managers. We had a good repetition last year, but I think we're going to have to continue to do those things in the coming years until we can put the dam back into its full operational capacity after construction will yield to clean everything up.
No, sir, I think you actually hit the nail right on the head. So in 2023, when we discovered this, we had a significant issue. That is what we were seeing there was very significant. And that is why we continue to keep the pool level very low, is to keep that energy, the energy that the head puts on the dam. If we draw that down, it loses the ability to move that material, right? And then we have the additional interim risk reduction measures, the wells, the monitoring, and the phase 2, which is the part Noah discussed earlier, which is the grouting of the voids. So we're actually gonna pump grout into the dam to seal the voids that have been created by the erosion. And so when those things get in, we won't be able to return to full pool, but with all of those, what you're doing is you're buying down the risk associated with the defects. And so as we sit here today, Arcobulla is safe. But that's why we continue to keep the pool low. But as the commander noted, when we first started this, whenever the pool level climbed to 215, we were 24/7 surveillance on the dam. Over time, as we saw that happen with interim risk reduction measures in place, we were able to monitor what's going on underneath the dam by reading ground pressures and things like that. We were able to get to a point where we actually feel pretty confident that 220 is probably, we're okay going to 220 before we start that. So you've already seen a little bit of our comfort level just kind of illustrated in that. And we'll continue to get better as we implement phase 2 of the RMs.
Is 220 full pool? Is that kind of I mean, I see about 10,000 acres. It can't be 10.6 is what the screen shows.
220 is the summer pool.
Summer pool. Okay.
210 is winter pool.
Gentlemen, just to follow up, and I'll promise I'll let other people ask questions, but if we all know that I've lived here, everybody's lived here in Mississippi pretty much our whole lives. We've seen what a significant rain event is, and I think we could all agree that we haven't had one of those like we've seen in the past since this dam breached. I think it would be unrealistic to think or to believe that that's not going to happen sometime during these repairs or this time period where the dam is being reconstructed. So when that happens and we get real rain, like we've had many times in the past and real significant flood issues, what is the plan? In other words, do you see you can go back and you can look at, I know we had 07, 08, there've been other years since then where we had some significant rain and floods. What is the Corps' plan? Is it just, hey, we're going to monitor it and see? And if that thing does breach, how much time do people downstream have to evacuate and get out? I don't think it's a lot, but I'd love to hear y'all's, I think the people would love to hear y'all's comments on that.
Yeah, so that's a good question, and it's a lot in that question. So
Yeah.
I'll start with the rainfall, and I'll start with the releases out of Arcabella. So at Marks, Mississippi, when you hit around a 40 or 41 where they start seeing impacts, there's 11,000 CFS coming down the Coldwater River. We're releasing 4,500 out of Arcabella. All that water does not make it to Marks. So you have it go up the old Coldwater, you have it go up through Samosera. There's some storage that's sufficed. I think the people that are local that know the area, Pompey Ditch does not see that entire 4,500 CFS. So if it did, then Marks gets about 40% of that water at a flood stage from Arcabella. We think it's more in the 25 to 33% range of what comes from Arcabella. So what that means is the majority of the problems is due to local rainfall. And you mentioned it. What we can stand a 2-inch, 3-inch rain. That area is flat. It drains real slow. What we cannot stand is a 6-inch rain, and a week or 10 days later, we get another 6-inch rain or an 8-inch rain. That's what happened in 2016. That's what happened in 2019. When you get hit with those multiple rain events, most of the issues are from your local drainage. When you talk about a breach, you know, we've had people say, hey, why don't we just fill the lake up and let it do what it does? We can't do that. I don't think there's anybody at this table here that's going to allow that. So I just said 11,000 CFS starts to flood Marks, Mississippi. If you look at the inflow coming into Arcabella is 1,000 square feet. I'm sorry, 1,000 square miles of drainage area comes to Arcabella. 640,000 acres of land drains to Arcabella. 226 times in the last 80 years, we've had enough water coming in that would flood Marks. We've had over 50 times, we've had 30,000 CFS coming into the lake. That's 3 times what would flood Marks. And over 15 times, we've had 50,000 CFS coming into Arcabella. 5 times what would flood Marks. The peak was 1991, I believe. We had over 100,000 CFS, 101,600 CFS coming into Arcabella. So we need Arcabella there. We need it for flood control. We need it to do its job. If you had a breach, we have done maps. So the public viewer they talked about, we've done inundation maps starting at 39 to I think 43 every 1 foot interval of Marks, what Marks would look like at 1 foot intervals. We have done breach maps at 210, 220, 230 in the pool. And we have, so those are out there with depths. I can tell you the 230 foot, if there's 230, if the water's at 230 in the lake and it breached, you get 2 foot of water in Greenwood. It's massive. If that breaches, you have almost 200,000 CFS coming down through there. I mean, it would wipe Marks and Sarah and Lambert. Those towns are gone if we had that happen at that high of a pool. So it's imperative that we keep it there. We do have breach maps out there. Those that I talked about showing depths. We also have arrival. So we have what would be inundated in 12 hours, 24 hours, 36, 48. So those are available. They mentioned the public meetings with the county emergency managements. We had one this year. We had one 2 years ago. We provided those maps to those county emergency management officials. So they all have a copy of the maps I just spoke about.
You kind of commented on that just a little bit, but I'm just going to ask it this way. What is the Corps' plan to work with the state partners or the local partners when we do have those significant rain and flooding events? How does that process and that coordination work?
So we lean forward. We produce the inundation maps for the Yazoo Basin. We will forecast with the Weather Service what Marks is going to get to. We will run an inundation map of Marks, and we provide it to those partners of what to expect, and then assist them however they need to. If that's, there's been a lot of work done with Bill Shepard and the locals on sandbagging. If it's evacuation routes, we'll help however we need to assist in that. But we lean forward with the inundation maps.
Yeah, I just want to add, this is what it looks like. So we see the rainfall forecasts, our meteorologists tell us rain's coming. Corey runs some models and we build those maps. I directly send those maps to Director McCraney and say, I got an issue, we need to coordinate. And then we drive up to Marks and we go stand with the levee board and say, what's our plan to build temporary structures behind the sheriff's office there in Marks and other places. So what it looks like is exactly what we rehearsed and executed this last spring.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. I know there's some more questions that I'll have, but I'm going to turn it over. I know members of the committee and the members of the legislature may have some questions. So I saw the gentleman from Natchez. He may have stepped out. I think there he is. You've got a question.
Thank you. Thank you. My questions are more, I've been trying to look up stuff as you say things because I don't know what the hell you're talking about half the time. But I do know what CFS means now, so I get that. But downriver in Natchez, we get the flooding, so we just we monitor the, what's the water level kind of thing. So just for my edification, all these lakes that were built in the, when you gave the dates up there, they were built as part of a flood system plan. Is that what they, okay. And are all the dams built out of earth or silt or something of that nature? So earth and dams. And so none of them are concrete. Okay. And when you do these repairs, will they be done with earth? I heard you say something about some other material you would be using.
Yeah, so the dam, except the conduits would be concrete, gatehouse concrete. Actual repairs to the dam, so excavated, go back, it'll all be earth.
Okay, and the other question is, all of these dams, let's see, Sardis, Enid, Arcabutla, and what's the other one? Grenada Lake. They all work with outlet systems. None of them have spillways. Outlet. So what's the difference between an outlet and a spillway? I mean, why would you? How does that work? This is all. I'm trying to understand what's going on here.
So the outlet works are the gates that you see
Yeah.
us operating on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And that's the way we evacuate the majority of the water.
Okay.
So when the water in the lake gets up to a certain elevation, we don't want it to put too much pressure on the dam. We don't want to get close to the top of dam. So that's where we have the spillway. So at Arcabutla, the spillway is at 238.3.
So there is a spillway at Arcabutla?
There's a spillway.
And an outlet.
And an outlet.
So
And
at
it's
Ross
the same way.
Barnett Reservoir, it's just a spillway, right? Do they have an outlet too?
At what now?
At Ross Barnett Reservoir?
Ross Barnett they have a gated outlet.
Okay, I'd never heard of an outlet. That's why I was asking, yeah.
So the spillway, we think of it as a pressure relief valve.
Okay,
So when you get a lot of water and there starts getting extra pressure on the dam, water will go over the top of the spillway. All of our spillways are concrete.
okay,
So it's not controlled like we can control the gates.
okay, all right. That's just edification question. Appreciate it, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Who else has got some questions? I know we've got some more. Representative Horan, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to ask a couple of questions. I represent part of my district has Grenada Lake, part of it has Enid. And I got a little square plot of land that's on the Coldwater just north of Marks. And I want to ask some questions about, first of all, Grenada and Enid to make sure what you're saying is you don't foresee any of the same problems on those two dams that have occurred at Arcabutla. I'm not tying you down to say yes, no, but
No,
you're
that's correct.
monitoring, and I noticed, last summer, I saw some work on the backside of Grenada Dam, maybe in 2 summers ago. What was that work y'all were doing on Grenada Dam?
I'm not familiar with what we're
Well,
doing.
I don't know what there was, it was some construction on the backside, on the, north side of the
Oh, that is,
spillway.
Are you talking out in the Yalabusha Channel clean out?
Yeah,
We're doing like
right.
up near Calhoun City?
Right, that's
So
correct.
we were removing the plug that basically has been growing there for the last 20 years
I
and
gotcha.
reestablishing a river for about 7 miles so that Calhoun City wouldn't flood.
Okay, thank you. I'm just curious what that was. When you getting back to Arcabutla, I want to ask a little bit about, so I have an understanding about when y'all basically building that temporary dam so you can do the work on the spillway. is that gonna assist you, like last year? We stayed at 238 on my property for a long time, longer than normal. I mean, the year before, likewise, it seems to be increasing to where we're not having, it's out of bank pretty regular. Will when do you think you'll have that completed? And when you have that completed, is that gonna eliminate some of the flooding downstream? Some of the flooding seems to be like, used to be just kind of temporary, come in, come out, but now it just seems to be weeks at a time. And we almost got flooded. Structure I have down there came within 6 or 8 inches of getting flooded. I think it was at 243 almost, 242 or something like that. But we hadn't been that high quite naturally before the dam broke. But I'm curious as to whether or not, if you get that temporary dam where you can do the construction, are you gonna be able to raise pool?
Yes,
No.
sir. No,
No, I assume that wouldn't be I'm just curious. I mean, I'm gonna be asked that question when I get back home.
Sure. The purpose of the temporary dam, the coffer dam, is simply
Construction
Yes.
purpose.
construction so we
Right.
can work in the dry rather than having to work out in the.
What I'm saying, I assume that's just to catch if it rains or something, you're gonna be staying dry in there all the time. It's
Right.
not to assist in raising any
No,
pressure off of anybody.
Yeah,
You're not
it's-
gonna be working with water above your workers is what I'm saying.
right.
So when it starts going up, I don't want people saying, why aren't they raising? The reason you're not raising the water is because it's not designed for that purpose, right?
Well, the reason we wouldn't be raising the water now is kind of what, the way it is shown on the screen is to continue to keep, even with the interim risk reduction measures in place, continue to keep pressure off the dam
That's
so
what,
that we don't get back to that.
back to where you
back
were.
to that, yeah, that internal erosion issue.
So I guess going back home, I can just tell folks that we can anticipate the same type, if you have the similar rainfall, we're gonna have the same type of flooding issues that we've had the last couple of years moving forward until such time as this dam is completed 2035 or 2042, whatever that date may be. Fair, is that a fair assessment of the situation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
All right, I do have one other question, if I can read my own handwriting, my notes. And really just a simple question. Is this a matter of first impression for the Vicksburg office? In other words, have y'all dealt with this? Has the Vicksburg office dealt with this at any of our other lakes before? I would assume we've dealt with something like this on a national basis, but I don't know that. I hate to make any assumptions today.
So I would say yes and no, right? Always the middle ground answer, right?
Right.
So we've been dealing with this issue. I think we've grouted this thing like 13 times since it was constructed. So this has been a known issue, and our engineers have tried to find the solution. When those Band-Aid fixes didn't address the root cause, now you got to bring in the national engineers when you found the sinkhole and you've now elevated to the point where you might have a catastrophic failure. We've mitigated those risks. We are not under catastrophic failure right now. We're under the supervision and overwatch, and now the Huntington District is the lead engineer for this repair project because they have done these and are responsible for the entire inventory of 790, federal dams across the core inventory. We brought in the best our country has to offer, and we've given it the right prioritization for the appropriation process to find the fastest and best repair. I say fastest, recognizing that still might be 10 years, but when you look at the scale of what we're trying to do, it's going to take some time to get it right.
Am I reading this, and these are my words, so you tell me if I'm wrong, but 794 total dams that the Corps is responsible for nationwide? Was that your number?
Yeah, roughly 790.
Roughly 790. And the way I read your slide was that the Arca Butler Dam is in the top three of seriousness for repair nationwide. Is that?
Yeah, that's correct. The three DSAC ones, we talked about the DSAC rating. The three DSAC ones are Whittier Narrows in Los Angeles, California, Painted Rock out in Arizona, and then Arca Butler.
All right. All right. Follow-up question to what you mentioned a minute ago, Colonel. You said this was I think your word that you used was we put several Band-Aids on this issue. Are you talking about since the discovery of the sinkhole in 23, or are you talking about prior to that, y'all been putting Band-Aids on this dam for a while?
Yeah, no, you want to address that? Because I'm just gonna say, we've been putting Band-Aids on this since the 40s.
So since it was
correct.
built?
So it's, as soon as we put the dam into operation in 1943, the engineers, the folks on site, we had issues with the outlet works, with the dam, and we've been trying to mitigate those issues by grouting and other measures since then. And obviously they haven't worked, with the sinkhole development that showed up in 2023. You know, the thing about a dam is, if you think about it, it's always loaded. And so if there's any weakness in the dam, the water will find a way. And it's continuously 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, attacking that dam. So it's going to expose every flaw or weakness that dam has. So that dam, when it was originally built, it was supposed to have, it's sitting on sand. And it's supposed to have water stops. Basically, as the conduit was poured into sections of concrete, and those sections have a joint, and there's supposed to be a water stop that stops water from coming into that joint. And that dam in the 1940s was not built, so it was a construction defect. None of the other three lakes have this defect. Arca Butler is the one that does have this defect. And so with that dam constantly loaded for 80 years, water is going to find a way, and it has. And we've tried our best to utilize what we have, but really this requires a full repair of the outlet works, not a Band-Aid fix.
What was the distinction with the Arca Butler Dam that caused this basically ongoing problem that you said for 80 plus years that the other dams did not have? I mean, was it designed differently, or what was the distinction there?
The distinction was in the plans and specs. If you go back and look, there was in the original design, it was supposed to have water stops, and somewhere during construction, water stops were taken out of the plans, and they were never built. So that's the key distinction for Arca Butler, is it was a construction defect that was not caught during construction, that was exposed after the dam was put into service.
Wow. First time I've ever heard that. All right, I think Senator Whaley has some questions. I'm gonna turn it over to him at this time.
Thank you, Mr.
Turn that thing on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this committee hearing and also for allowing a senator to sit in and participate. Thank you all from the Corps for coming in and answering some of these questions. A few of the questions that I have, we've talked about the safety level and how Arca Butler is at a 1, Sardis is at a 2, and Grenada and Enid, are at a level 4 now. Prior to the sinkhole in 2023, what safety level was Arca Butler on? Do you know?
Yeah, it was in a 2, similar to Sardis.
Okay, so it's been at a 2 for a while.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. While you're installing these coffer dams over the next 15 years, as the timeline states, what water level will you have to be at to do that? Will you have to be at the 204 or below, or what type of range do you have on that? Since that'll be an earthen structure as well.
Yeah, that's correct. So right now, the foreseeable future, the plan is the water between 200 and 204.
Okay, so with that, we can expect water levels to be high downstream. We can expect for water levels to be low upstream. You know, a lot of your local communities are built on what's around them. And, you know, this area, and you can talk about two different communities, both above the dam and below the dam. And I'll start with above the dam. When the water level is low, you know, people are not able to utilize the lake. So therefore you're putting a big strain on your local communities that have been built around recreational activities. But if you look below the dam, you're looking at rural Mississippi, as you are the start of the Delta when you get below the dam. Rural communities that are heavily relying on the agriculture lifestyle, that's their main sense of opportunity there. I asked FSA to pull me some numbers about prevented planted unplanting acres along this river line, the Coldwater River. And I stopped after Quitman County. I compiled numbers with Tate, Tunica, and Quitman, and I know that this goes far south of that. But you're talking about 54,000 acres unplanted. That's very substantial to the local communities. And I say all of this, and I'm bringing up the point because the 15-year timeline just simply, we're going to lose an entire area is what I'm afraid of. And I know that we, with 800 dams across this nation, surely we have ran into this problem somewhere, some way that we could utilize other facts of ways to combat this. Army Corps of Engineers has some of the smartest people in the world. It just seems that we could do this a little bit quicker and a little bit faster. That's one of the things that really, really concerns me with that. And you said that this is and is not the first problem of its kind. You've dealt with this and you haven't dealt with it. Can the public utilize Arca Butler in any way currently at this time, or is it completely shut off, or what does that look like?
No, Arca Butler remains available to the public. That does not mean that it has the full recreational benefits that we've seen for generations, and we recognize that's the concern. But you know, the public can access Arca Butler where it's safe. Absolutely, we recognize, you know, from you know our engagements with the local community members, the concerns of the new vegetation and willow trees growing in there. We've got to figure that out. But to your earlier comments, you know, your sentiment is shared at the federal level within the Mississippi, you know, delegation. Their comments were loud and clear. We know it will take a federal appropriation to deliver the repair. We've established the urgency throughout the agency and throughout you know the collaborative agencies at the state and federal level as well. But we require the federal appropriation to ultimately yield the solution.
Well, I can appreciate that, and I understand that process. Going forward, as you as the Corps work on this issue, could I have a commitment from you all that you will work with the local legislators or the local community leaders to let them know what is happening in the area so that we can assist in other ways?
You have our commitment.
Thank you.
We work for the federal government. We live in your communities. We're your partners through this entire process.
To follow up to Senator Whaley's points, the very well made points, that this is a serious matter that hits home to people's families, their livelihoods, their pocketbooks, in addition to the safety issues as well. So many people affected that I think a lot of people maybe either took for granted or didn't fully realize that are affected by what's happened the last 2 years in this extended time frame. My question to you is simply this. You're obviously here in the Mississippi Capitol, in front of the Mississippi Legislature and the Ways and Means Committee. What can the state of Mississippi do, and if anything, to assist to assist the Corps of Engineers, to assist the federal government, other than to continue to have these communications? But what can we do? That's a very real question. You know, we want to help any way we can. So I would love to hear y'all's thoughts on if, at the state level, what can be done to assist the Corps in speeding up this process.
You know, I guess I would offer 2 points or you just, you know, for consideration. It's not my position to advocate for the Mississippi legislature to provide any solution, but I would offer kind of two points. Speaking with one voice. So this type of dialogue allows us, you know, visibility of the concern. And we've got to be on, you know, the same voice throughout our state level and federal level delegates on the long-term repair. The second point I would say is, you know, continue to be partners of action. And what I mean by that is, you know, I know I have direct access to the state level agencies because he's in my peripheral. You know, Director McCraney and I, you know, will be aligned in any federal or state level, you know, need with flood risk management or disaster response or preparation from his authorities and equities. So those are just a couple points.
Thank you. Other questions from the committee? Representative Kincaid, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, fellas. I appreciate you, your, being here with us today. I feel positive that we got the right people and the right mission and the right plan in place. And I feel much better about that. I kind of look at this like the senator does. You know, there's two components here. There's the upriver and the downriver. And so downriver, our safety is the most important thing. Obviously, we all agree that that's got to be the most top of the mind. And to do it where it doesn't have to be done again. I am concerned though a little bit on the upside of this. I mean, again, as the senator said, Arca-Butler itself is a recreational haven, and it is an economic driver. I mean, it does drive the economy in Tate, DeSoto, and provides a lot of opportunity for people for access. And so there have been times at Arca-Butler, even in high water when it would drop, that boat ramps were not usable. There were limited access. There were just some issues. You know, I understand that if we're saying 15 years, 17 years, 20, whatever it's going to take. What is your vision, or do you have a vision to work on the basin itself? In other words, our day use areas, our wildlife access areas, our boat ramps. I mean, is it going to be an improved component there as well?
Maybe. So behind the scenes, they're you know, our engineers have to be given the time to do this, and so there's an idea that it's pre-decisional, and we're looking at alignment of the downstream basin, if you will, right? So when you roll back the tape to the 1940s, the outlet spillway, if you will, stops. We don't know why it stops. We think the funding was reappropriated to the war effort, but that outlet or the spillway channel wasn't really connected with the outlet channel. And so if the dam, but when the spillway is activated, the farmland north of Arca-Butler does receive water, I'm told. I haven't seen it personally. So I've asked our engineers to look at downstream of the dam, south of the dam, can we realign and reorient all the kind of hydrology or connective spillways and structures into something a little bit more manageable. Why do I have that idea? because that's exactly what Sardis has. I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm just saying we are looking at evaluating how do we make the dam operate more efficiently and effectively in the future, because we have been given an opportunity to say, if you could redo it, would you make any improvements? And that's what I've asked our engineers to do. And that's why I say if, because the engineers got to come back to me and say whether or not it's technically feasible and environmentally acceptable. I hope that helps you out. I gave you the non-answer, but I
Maybe.
did kind of give you the science behind the non-answer.
I would, tell you, I appreciate that. Again, there are times when even when the lake is accessible, the creeks and the channels have silted in and just, you can't navigate. So obviously, some dredging would be great, some to improve the access and opportunity. I want to go back to one other thing. Our lake levels right now, we're gonna be at 136 feet, whatever it is, or 200 feet. We're talking about a high level, 10,000 acres, is that correct? 10,000 acres at 220 feet, okay. And so what's our plan to mitigate the wildlife impact there? Because it's gonna be substantial on 10,000 acres. I mean, in 15 years, that's gonna grow into woods, literally, not the basin. A 15-year-old willow tree is gonna be immense.
Yeah, sorry, I missed part of your question. Is your question really what's happening to the habitat as it's growing?
Well, yeah, just the impact on the wildlife, not only in the basin, but below dam where we're gonna build coffer. There's gotta be some impact on sensitive species like the snapping turtle and the bats, and there's other things that we have to address federally.
No, I got you. Okay.
You have a mitigation plan for that.
So before we can do any project impacts, we have to pass NEPA. So the National Environmental Protection Act, which incorporates all those other umbrella things like Endangered Species Act and Historical Preservation Act, things like that. So you're exactly right. We're on schedule. To do that, and then we got some realignment by the Corps of Engineers, the chief, to say, get us to 35% to validate the number that we need to go to Congress before we pass NEPA at this point. So we've delayed signing the statement of no significant findings on the National Endangered Species Act, the NEPA process, until we get to the 35% design. That way we can speak with one voice to, yes, we have looked at that this project and this design the engineers come up with is technically feasible, environmentally acceptable, and it's budgetable within the federal appropriation process. So all three things are going to align. We project by next summer. No, would I say anything wrong from a safety process there? Okay.
So below the dam, I anticipate we only have about a 50-acre impact. Is that correct?
We more so, I guess.
Okay,
Sure.
thank you.
I was, so there were some comments there, or, some chuckles there. So let me quantify why I said sure. Because we still are identifying the borrow pit areas to build the 1,000,000 cubic feet, borrow pit area for the coffer dam. So we've got to identify that location before we also got to drive this into the NEPA process.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for having this hearing. I would have loved to have had this hearing at the base of the dam and how many people would have shown up. But thank you guys for being here. We do have local representation. I don't know if anybody knows, but Mr. Winders is from DeSoto County, grew up there. And he does an outstanding job. Whenever when I call, he has an answer for whatever question. It may be crazy or what. What was the total dollar figure that you estimated for the dam itself? Approximately 800. Was it 800 million?
Yeah, this is about a 10% level of design at this point. So we're going to take the next, several months to mature this number. But right now, the initial number that we've started to have a conversation with Congress about for total construction throughout the entire thing is about $830 million.
Does that include any dredging of the lake, doing away with the trees, or is this strictly the dam, the structure itself?
No, I'll let you clean this up, but to my understanding, the dredging that's being discussed here, the tree cleanouts and things like that is not in scope currently within that number. It is not in this number.
Do we have a ballpark number if that was going to happen? What that might be?
I don't believe we've looked at that scope of work, so I do not have a ballpark number, no.
Have we looked at the crystal ball in the future, and will those go away? Are we gonna leave them in the lake as they stand?
No, we know that we need to address kind of the smaller growth that is growing in the lake, because that additional vegetation and tree structure will cause further problems for years to come. So we know that the willows need to go. Now, how we do that, we need to evaluate. I've seen on Facebook pages and things like that, let's just spray it. Well, I've got concern with, okay, the environmental impacts of some of those things. So I'm sure others will find a safe way, but we've got to make sure that again, we remain environmentally acceptable, because, you know, of the recreational and you know, environmental benefits of the lake.
And would that happen as you get closer to the finish line on the dam, or would it have to be completely finished before you started that project?
No, we got to do some stubby pencil analysis. My initial indication would be, if we wait, it gets more expensive. And so maybe there's an iterative solution. Maybe we do one, you know, in you know, next year or two. Maybe we have to do one closer to when we actually do fill the lake up. So if we allow trees to grow for 10 years, we'll simply have 10-year-old trees, and that's a bigger problem.
Thank you on that. Another concern that wasn't addressed are people that live along the lake, and their property values now, have they dropped because of the lake has dropped? I don't know if anybody's gotten an evaluation on their home since this has happened or not. But that is a big concern for those residents. And I got one more thing. God forbid, if we did have a breach of that dam, with the rainfall that Mr. Winters was talking about, the 6 inches and another 6 inches a week later. If that dam was to breach, how long do we have to evacuate Marks, Mississippi?
I think it's in the 24 to 36 hour time frame.
And how many people live in Marks?
2,000?
2,000, it says.
So we've got 36 hours to evacuate. I think that right there needs to be in the forefront of everyone's mind. I didn't hear you. I'm assuming y'all met with Congressman Thompson as well when y'all went to DC. Was that a concern? Obviously it is, I'm sure.
So I did not meet with Congressman Thompson on DC last week. I met at his Bolton office for about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes a couple weeks ago. And we did talk a range of issues. Yes.
Okay. But I think we all, you know, if there's any way whatsoever to expedite this, 36 hours to evacuate 2,000 people, and a lot of those are elderly and handicapped or whatnot. And I'm glad Director McCraney is here and working with you guys, because that's a monumental task, just thinking about it. But thank you for being here and informing us on.
Thank you, Senator. I do have a follow-up point that I would like to, maybe a word of encouragement. This is coming from somebody like many of us who have lived near that lake my entire life. Right now, I think you've mentioned that you do not have, call it whatever you want to call it, cleanup, grubbing, whatever in the budget. But guys, this could be an opportunity. Obviously, you're going to have to address the overgrowth. I mean, you've got anywhere from 10 to up to $13,000 acre lake bed. That's just, the vast majority of it is just overgrown right now. I mean, you go out there, you look at it and it looks bad, but historically also Butler Lake has been, somebody may say, well, no, I don't, I'm telling you, everybody who lives there and has been on that lake knows it's known as a muddy lake. It's known as a shallow lake. You can drive up I-55 today, and I think we got some rain yesterday. It's the first rain we've gotten almost, 2 months or longer in Tate County. And you're going to see standing water on the sides of I-55. You don't have to be a chief Corps engineer to understand that water, and Corey and I talked about this just a few weeks ago, but that water's not getting into the river and not getting into the lake bed. I don't know why, but it seems to me there could be an opportunity when we fix this thing, especially since you've got to go into the lake bed and address the overgrowth and the everything, the organic material that's going to be there to address the serious prolonged issues of shallowness and siltiness and muddiness. And I know there's a lot of factors that go into that. Corey and I talked about some of those. But it just seems like there's a real opportunity to improve the lake from that standpoint while we're also preparing the dam. So I would love to encourage you from that standpoint to please look at that and make that part of the best Butler Dam plan that you come up with, because that's an important part to a lot of folks.
I'll address kind of the last couple of comments have been on sedimentation.
Yep.
So we know that the Coldwater River above Butler has had a lot of sedimentation in it. We've had surveys to kind of prove that. It's a lot of what we saw at Yallowbusha, the work we're doing on the Yallowbusha Creek out above Grenada now. I don't know if the colonel's aware or not, but we did a study last year with ERDIC, our Engineering Research Development Center, also in Vicksburg, on how best to alleviate that sedimentation problem on the Coldwater River. So we have a plan in place for that. We're doing a study this year on when that plan is enacted, how best not to just let it tear up everybody's property around. Because when you clean a river out, it tends to get wider, deeper. So we have a study ongoing for this year. But what that study showed us is when the lake is at high water levels and you have sediment coming down, it falls out. It hits basically zero velocity, falls out. And that's what you've seen in the upper part of the lake, really from Highway 51 upstream. What the study showed us that was completed last year was while the lake's down, it's best not to clean it out. And as you get heavy rainfall, it is more likely to flush that sediment naturally over the next few years. And then we would address that sedimentation clean out as we get closer to project completion of the project we're talking about.
Well,
so we've looked into that. It's just not something that we think is best to implement right now in terms of the sedimentation issue.
You're the experts. Y'all are the engineers. This is what you specialize in. It's just, however best we do it, it's an issue that if I've heard it once, I've heard it literally hundreds and hundreds of times over the years, that there's a problem there with sedimentation. I think you mentioned that. So however we can best do that and accomplish some of those improvements along with rebuilding the dam, I think there'd be a lot of people that would be in favor of that, and I'll put it that way. What other questions? Gentleman from Panola, you get a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank y'all gentlemen for being here in y'all's time. I'm from Batesville, so a good portion of my area is affected by 3 of your dams. My southwest corner, we get drainage from Butler, Sardis, and Enid. And using y'all's numbers that y'all stated about the flooding around the marks and down the tributaries from Askew on down, and stating the amount of water that the Coldwater can handle and what y'all are releasing, and that doesn't appear to be why seems to be excess flooding. But as somebody from that area, I've seen all 3 of those dams. I've seen the water run over the emergency spillway, and I've seen it flood, periodically. But the water levels we've had the last several years, they're higher than they've ever been. and it's staying longer than it ever has. So if the numbers y'all gave us are correct, y'all got another problem somewhere, because we're reaching levels that we've never reached south of the dam along the tributaries. And it's hanging in there longer, and it's hanging in there most of the spring, affecting our farmers and the people that live there. The numbers y'all have are correct. And the Arca Butler amount that's being released since this problem is not causing that excess. There's a problem somewhere.
Let me explain a little bit kind of how we typically operate our dams. So if we get 2 inches of rainfall in one of our basins, we close the gates to our dam. So for talking about Arca, we use Mark's gauge. So when we see Mark's gauge rise and then we see it peak and start to fall, we will open the gates at Arca. And basically we fill in behind that peak. So it starts to drop. It takes about 3-4 days or so for water to get from Arca to Mark's. So Mark's is dropping. We let water out of Arca, and Mark's still drops, and we just kind of fill in behind it. That's how we operate it normally. What's happening now is we can't hold water in Arca. So when it rains 2 inches, we're releasing water out of Arca. But what's happening is it's coming down and it's backing up the old Coldwater River towards Birdie and places like that. And it's filling in. So you have more water in that overall basin, and it takes longer to get out. But what we typically see is that old Coldwater River is the driver for like places like Mark's falling. Mark's gauge will fall about like Birdie gauge falls on that old Coldwater River. So that's the difference you're seeing is that water comes down Arca, fills in a lot of that storage, and there's more water there sooner essentially because we can't hold it in the dam. When we get a 2-inch rain, we've been fortunate. We had high water in January and March or April of this year, but the last time we were above, 439 was really 2019. So we've been blessed and lucky that we haven't had that 6-inch and 8-inch rainfall occur back to back in the last 6 years. Because if something does like that happen, it could not be good. So that's just kind of how we operate Arca. That's how we operate all our lakes normally, and kind of how we're having to change the operation to Arca and kind of what we're seeing.
Guys, I think this is this time, Manny, for me to ask this question. We've talked a lot about Marks, but I want to read, I've asked some of our local officials to submit some questions and see if they had anything that they'd like for us to address. And I did receive a specific question from Mr. Butch Zipper, the Chancery Clerk of Quitman County. And I'm just going to read his question to y'all. If y'all may have spent some time already talking to Butch, but this is a question that's specific to Quitman County and the Marks and Lambert area. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, but my name is Butch Zipper. I'm the Chancery Clerk from Quitman County. My family is engaged in farming as well. Quitman County, and particularly the largest 2 towns of Marks and Lambert, are in the bullseye of any flooding that will happen because of the incompletion of the Arca Dam repairs. Quitman County has proposed a plan to help it fight the flood that we know is coming during the 12 to 15 year repair time that the Corps has given for Arca Dam. This work is expected to cost a couple $1 million, but will pale in comparison to the damage caused by the catastrophic flooding that we believe will come during this time frame. In 1994, we installed 5 pumps in the Siglar subdivision and on the Anderson Street area. These are now 30 years old and they need to be reworked or replaced. We need 3 additional pumps at Humphrey Street location, Cotton Street location, and near our hospital and nursing home. In the past, these 3 areas have used tractor-driven pumps to lift the water over the levee. We also need to construct a berm along the east side of Riverside Road in order to help stop the erosion in the Univista subdivision that affects that specific flood control structure. We would ask that the state consider requesting that the Corps of Engineers give priority to the funding effort outlined in our proposal so that we can begin implementing them immediately. We need the state of Mississippi to encourage the federal government to finish the Upper Yazoo project quickly. The Quitman County area is the final remaining portion that will alleviate flooding in the Coldwater River Basin. And we thank the state of Mississippi for holding these hearings today. And they stress the importance of why we're here today. Gentlemen, would y'all like to comment on that? And that's specific to Quitman County and some issues there. But I know the question itself touched on the the specific Coldwater River levy, which does fall under y'all's jurisdiction.
Yeah, we are committed to reaching out to Quitman County and we can, you know, continue that dialogue. As I said at the beginning, you know, flood risk is shared risk. So it is a challenge that we all need to look at. We've continued to coordinate with the local levy boards. But we can reach back out and address, you know, seek broader understanding of those
Yeah.
concerns.
I think based off, you know, my understanding of what the Chancery Clerk in Quitman County is saying is they need some attention to the partnership during this time frame between the county at the local level and directly with the Corps. So if someone, I've got Mr. Zipper's contact information, but could reach out directly with Quitman County from y'all's office, I think that would be very much appreciated. Thank you. We have any more questions? Yes, sir. Gentlemen, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just got one question, well, maybe two. Is this a sole core engineering plan?
Yeah. Yeah, this is a Corps of Engineers plan. It's a Corps federal dam, right? It's a Corps of Engineers dam. So we do external peer review to get on our plan. And we will continue to do that, have feedback from external experts outside the Corps.
Yeah, so I threw that to him real quick, so let me fill in some of those things. So we recognize the Corps can't do it alone. And so there's federal statute out there that says, hey, sometimes internal bureaucracy creates its own biases, right? So now there's what we call an independent peer external review, where we get external engineers to evaluate the Corps design. So the Corps will design it. We'll get external engineers to say, hey, did you see any internal biases or things like that didn't give us a good solution? And then we'll receive you know, another, you know, federal contract, but we'll go out for large construction, you know, contractor will be brought in to do the construction, and then maybe a secondary contractor to supplement some of the quality oversight. So there will be Corps and industry experts through delivery.
So it's y'all's idea. I mean, you don't go out and basically bid that out for your outside engineering firms for maybe a better cost efficient or time efficient, or maybe even come up with a different plan outside the box that y'all are aware of on the initial front end.
So yes, you're right. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Gentlemen, a few more questions that I've got, then I think if we're done, we'll be close to finishing up. But I've had these questions a lot from people, residents live in the area. What about outside the lake itself? There's been a lot of confusion about what is open in the area. It's not just a 13,000 acre lake. I mean, how many acres are controlled by the Corps around Arkabulla Lake? Do we have that answer?
I don't know the exact acreages. I'll go on a limb and say a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And so there's questions about recreational areas, not including the lake. I mean, I've seen signs of road closures to boat ramps and things of that nature. Are all those other recreational areas, not including the lake itself, campgrounds and things of that nature, are they being kept up?
So to my knowledge, yes, they are being kept up. But you know, I think we owe a follow up if there's any ambiguity with you know where this question's getting to, and we can increase our social media and outreach to identify. We know hunting season's coming up. I know there's a lot of youth hunts and things like that to go on at all of our Mississippi lakes. So we can increase that communication.
And those areas are open as far as you're telling us today, is that right?
Yes.
And there's no plans to close down
No.
outside of the lake itself. I'm just mean the other recreational areas around the lake.
No, we have not adjusted our standard kind of timelines or access to our recreational facilities due to this issue.
All right, the two things I'd like to leave y'all with today, if there are no other questions, and certainly I'll take questions up until the very end. So if anybody has another question, make sure you raise your hand, let me know. But two follow-ups, gentlemen, I guess I'd like to leave you with, or thoughts I'd like to leave you with. Number one, we mentioned this earlier, the emergency process. I mean, the fact that we've established today that there has been a systemic failure going back to the beginning of the lake. I mean, y'all have basically told us today that there was errors made in the construction process back in the 40s, long before any of us were sitting at this table. I'm not casting blame on anybody. I'm just stating the facts. You know, from the construction of the dam to the spillway, everything we've talked about today. And the testimony regarding the multiple Band-Aids that have been placed on the dam over the years up until the point in time where the sinkhole formed. To the very real threat that y'all have established being Arkabutla Lake Dam failure is one of the top 3 priorities in the entire nation when it comes to dams under the jurisdiction of the Corps of Engineers. I don't believe that message has gotten out to the public about the seriousness of where we are. I do not want to see Mississippi on national news with really bad things happening down below that dam, and I know y'all share that same sentiment. I say all that to say that if this is not an emergency under the emergency powers of the Corps of Engineers, I don't know what is. I certainly could make that argument based just off what I've heard today, that this is an emergency, that the potential loss of life and property is imminent and is severe over the course of the time frame that y'all have given us. So please get with your superiors, do everything in your power. Let the state know how we can help, because we're here, we're ready to help, to speed up this process so that we can ensure our people that work and live downstream have, you know, can have some peace of mind over the course of time that will take up this repair. They are owed that. And then secondly, and I'll leave you with this charge, back to what you said earlier, the dam wasn't built right. It had errors in its construction back in the 40s. The emergency spillway was not connected to the river. There are things that were not done correctly on the front end that y'all have made us aware of today at Arkabutla Dam. Let's please use this opportunity to repair it, make it a bigger, better dam for the people of Mississippi to not only enjoy, but to provide those safety measures that the dam is really there for, upstream, downstream. And let's have the next dam last a lot longer than the first dam did. So with that, if there's nothing else, if y'all have anything else to add, I'd like to hear it. But if not, we can conclude.
Nothing to add, just, express our gratitude for the conversation, the dialogue, the transparency, and the partnership. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, man. Thank y'all. Yeah, appreciate y'all helping.
Thanks, sir.
Good job. Questions? You sounded like a lawyer.
There's this shit. 15 years. Tell me about it. What he's saying. It's easy for an engineer coming from the nose. You don't know how big the problem is.
I'm surprised to see you as a two. That's like 9 on 20. So you don't think some people in Oxford gonna be hollering?
When they got.